Welcome to 221B Baker Street by way of the Southgate Bridge. I am Sherlock Holmes. Actually, I am your host, Zachary Hare, and usually this is when I introduce Watson, but sadly she is off doing an assignment in the Far East. But instead, we have our own Mycroft Holmes. Actually, it's Jesse Jackson. No, not that one.
Shouldn't I be Kitty? If I'm not Watson, am I Kitty? No, I like Mycroft. I like being Mycroft. That's nice.
I don't know. As much as I like it, let's see, Jesse, sexy British sleuth, or
yes.
Charming, little chubby, intelligent
Yes.
older brother. I gotta say.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. Zach, thank you so much for having me on this.
Well, it was a save, actually. Like I said, Kristen sadly got called into another assignment. She feels terrible because she loves this show and loves doing the podcast. I'm toying with the idea of doing alternating co-hosts, so I'm actually looking for. So, hey, if any fans out there want to just co-host for an episode, I might give you a chance. Just look for us on the Baker Street Podcast Facebook page, and we'll vet you out.
Yeah, I am. Zach and I, if you have not checked out our Daredevil podcast, you should. We had a great time, and we are excited about Jessica Jones coming up.
Yes, we are.
So, hey,
that's how I got my start, just asking, hey, can I podcast? And then it's been a lot of fun ever since.
There we go.
So did you know right away that this was another staged crime scene? Because I did.
When I was writing my notes, I assumed it was, especially when you see, Sherlock with the blood on his fingers. Yeah. I do not know if they use the same actresses for his companions, and his companions mean a whole different thing than Doctor Who companions.
Yeah. I think these might.
I think they are too. I'm not sure.
Well, the last time he did this, it was 3 women. Well, and he wasn't staging the crime scene; he was just talking about it.
Mm-hmm. And it is, it was a cool way to start. And I was so glad to have the show back. I just love. I was from the beginning, just to kind of give you guys a little background. I loved Sherlock on BBC. But I was excited because I'm a big Eli Stone fan. So Johnny Lee Miller, I was like, okay, anything he's in, I'm going to watch. And I've just loved this journey because they've taken things, they've kind of reinvented themselves.
And that's a good thing. They made it their own. It's not just it's not just, hey, it's just Sherlock Holmes and new stuff.
Yeah. And I like the fact that, like, last season, Sherlock had a new assistant. And they didn't reset things like I always talk about back in the old days of Bonanza, right? Little Joe would fall in love.
Oh God, yeah.
She would get married, she would die, and then the next week no one would talk about it.
Yeah, every episode, Little Joe falls in love with someone and it goes wrong. It's like, can we get a new storyline already?
And so, Elementary, last year when they they went to this new storyline and he had a new assistant, they followed through. Mm-hmm. And so I'm excited about this season that they're kind of having to find their own place. And
well, I have some thoughts on that when we get to that later in the episode.
Go ahead. Continue, sir.
Well, I'll get to that when we get later. But I like how Sherlock, because, we find out he's flexing his deductive muscles. So,
right.
Because he's now it's interesting because I rewatched the whole series over the summer, and when we ended, me and Kristen were a little disappointed about Holmes. He just used, and because there was no build up to it, and we were like, oh my God, is this really, this is why he uses? And I didn't get the chance. I was looking forward to talking on the show because we both agreed on it, but then I realized something. There was the episode. I'm forgetting the name off the top of my head. Was the one where was the serum that makes like time pass differently?
Right.
He says he thinks that because the struggle of being a dad, he knows that if he ever uses again, it's not going to be some big event. It's just going to be something that it's just going to happen. It's not going to be a big well-to-do. And and also it's interesting because this show, I've said so many times, they've consulted people because they show addiction so appropriately and accurately here. Because we got to remember, not everyone who's a recovering addict, when they use again, it's not always a downward spiral. For some of them, it's just one mistake, and they never go back to it again.
Yeah, and I do think that, and I want to be very careful here because I don't want to generalize.
Right.
But it is, I thought, interesting that this is a sign of it is most addicts do relapse.
It
You
can't. Well,
know,
yeah, it can
yeah,
happen. Yeah.
yeah, and so it is just part of the journey, and you have to start over, and you know, and at least he believes in the program, and he
And
believes
Watson
he's
makes mention
convinced.
about that the fact that unlike the first time he relapsed, he believes in NA this time. Like he's going to meetings like crazy. Watson makes mention of that. He's a different. He thinks of it like now he knows it will help him stay sober.
Yeah, and I also believe this is a very arrogant character, and I
Mm,
think that's part of the charm in it.
mm.
But he is not arrogant about this. In fact, he's almost beating himself up too
Yeah, yeah,
much.
he's mad about himself because
Yes.
it's reminiscent of the episode where he's getting his 1 year chip. He's avoiding the meeting. Alfredo pushes him and pushes him, and it turns out it was actually one more day for it to be a year of because
Yeah.
and he feels because he said it's like he said he makes the choice. It's his choice to be sober, and him relapsing is to him a weakness, and he
Yes.
hates that he gave that it happened.
Absolutely.
I just really think that, and I find it interesting that because it is believable, like I said, that he used once and that was it.
I totally believe it is. I believe that he was, saying that, and it was so just matter of fact last season,
Exactly.
right? Yeah, and I believe, and and even his friends and support, are going. There were a lot of reasons why this was happening. Not that they excuse it, but they're just saying, wow, and
They're all saying it happened. Okay, that we're moving on.
yeah, it is. So very, very interesting.
Yeah, well, I find it realistic, and it's really see fans of the show and people in podcasting have all talked because we knew it was very likely he was going to use again eventually. I mean, when you make
Yes.
your character recovering addict, it's a really good. I mean, they might not, but there's a good chance they still will.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like on NYPD Blue, right? They took it very seriously. If you're going to have Sipowicz slip, why and what reasons? And and I think that in this case, it story wise, it's the right time. And once again, we're talking about story. We're not talking about a person. But I think it gives you a new wrinkle and a realistic wrinkle, not like someone's going, "Oh, I should let's break up our leading, our couple just because we need stories." I think this just explains because this show is about addiction just as much as it is about solving crimes. At least in my opinion. What do you think?
Oh yeah, that very much. Because saying this one, and I again, this is something I've talked people's ears off about. Something that always bothered me about Sherlock, different adaptation Sherlock Holmes. Um, in the original story, he's not an addict.
Right.
See, people got to remember. Yes, it says he uses cocaine and like the 7% solution, and all that. But back then, cocaine was nowhere near what it was today. It was like something I'm not saying it was good, and he used it sometimes. He didn't. Now, of course, is it good? Was it good for him? Of course not. But
Yeah.
it's not. He wasn't addicted. And something people like to pretend isn't true, but is. But there are some people who can drink a little bit. I'm not saying it's good that they do drugs, but there are people out there who do a little bit and that's it.
Yeah.
There are people like this now. But there is a problem with adaptations that show the original Holmes as an addict, but this is not that. This is essentially what if? What if Holmes
Yeah.
was an addict and they use it fine?
Yeah, and I do think that's an important distinction, right? That in the original he did this because he was bored. And they talk about that, that he does this because he's trying to figure out what's next and how to do this. And to have him go through this journey and this concern, I think is just very, very good. I just do. I think it's an interesting story, and I think because it's one slip and back, all that emotional drama and that baggage he has, and how much does this shake his confidence? Does this shake his ability to do what he loves to do? And so we'll see what happens.
Exactly. Now, now we have. Okay, let me just. I think his name. Got the character name again. The guy from the last episode, Armis thing, Mr. Bloom. I almost said Booth.
Yeah,
Mr.
yeah,
Bloom. Jonathan Bloom.
yes.
I like this when because he comes up to Holmes and says, "Listen," and he just outright says, "Yeah, I killed those two women because of what Holmes did last season. It brought all this attention, so people are looking back at him for all the crimes he committed before. Because now there's another addict that went missing under his watch.
Right.
So he knows he's screwed. But what he says, he killed only two women. He did not kill his wife. Now some people might question the whole him killing himself. Like, why would? And I realized something. The guy's a control freak, a sadist, and a narcissist.
Yes.
All that he went out on his terms. He controlled, and he knew putting it in Holmes's hand would mean something he didn't do would get cleared.
Yes.
And I noticed also when Holmes is in the police station, he also seems uncomfortable. Now, anyone else would assume he's uncomfortable because a man just blew his brains out for him, but I don't think that's it. I think this is a conscious choice by either the act or someone on the show to show that Holmes is almost embarrassed, because these are people, he may not get along with a lot of them, but Marcus, of course, he's someone he respects, so he's like ashamed of what he did.
Yeah, and it does, I thought that was interesting, and I'm glad you brought that up, is, he's sitting there telling the story, and we don't have to hear everything again, but we do hear his, the things that's going on, and there's nothing else. He's telling the whole story. And then to have them, he's looking around and you see the people, from my perspective, they aren't staring at him. They're just going about their business, but they are not looking at him. And for him to go talk to the captain and to say, I know that if you're trying to save from telling me bad news, it's okay. Let's talk about this, right?
Yes, and he takes responsibility. That's the best part. And see, that's the only real people who are really trying to recover take responsibility for using. They never say, "Oh, the excuse." No, he's like, he used. It's my responsibility.
Yes, absolutely.
And so and Holmes, like, they knew, like, even if he doesn't get it prosecuted, like, he's never gonna consult again, and
right.
So we'll see where that goes. And you can tell Gregson doesn't want to tell him it.
Yeah, no, he doesn't want to at all.
So we see that Watson gets a rude awakening with the TV searching crimes, and Holmes reveals that that they did find bodies. So it looks like he probably was telling he was telling the truth about those. But Watson's still, of course, a little skeptical because the guy's still a psychopath.
Yeah.
But and I like how Holmes says he kind of does it without asking her, but he tells her without telling her that, he has to do this, for the reasons he says, it's because this could be his last case.
Yes.
And Watson understands that.
It does, and it's very, I'm in the camp that I do not believe these two should ever be romantically involved.
Oh God, I am so against that in so many ways.
And it appears the showrunners are too.
Yeah.
And I'm glad.
I think they've even said they will never sleep together, and they shouldn't sleep. Yeah. I was fine with her sleep with Mycroft. That had no problem with that.
Yeah, I don't either. I just like the idea that they are too often, and now I'm going to get on a mini rant, that modern media have trouble finding or showing a male-female friendship that isn't sexual. And I like this idea that there is a lot of love and respect between them two. But it will never go to that romantic
God,
part.
I hope not.
Yeah, I don't think so.
It would ruin the show. It would ruin the show.
I think so too. Thought it's interesting too that she's like, I'm no longer his sober companion. If he's going to have to do this, he's going to have to do it by himself.
I'm curious to see how Alfredo will enter the picture too. And are we going to get a new sponsor for Holmes?
Yes. I hope Alfredo comes back.
I'm sure he will.
Yeah, and this show has been very good at using reoccurring characters and giving them a lot.
I bet he'll bring Holmes a case or something like that. Because I don't think has he done that yet?
I don't know if he has or not.
I don't think he has.
Yeah.
But I think that would be a great way to bring it. That's probably what they're going to do, too.
Yeah.
So they decide to look into the case. that Holmes realizes there was a second woman which very similar to her
Yes.
to that goes missing, and they start looking. They notice that she went missing from her hotel room, and then we get a little kind of like the other part of the story of one of Holmes's father's lackey calls him, and what's funny is she says which Mr. Holmes, and if you notice he says the Mr. Holmes.
Yes.
Like there can be only one.
Yeah, and I love the interaction of Peter. Sherlock knows that what my father doesn't ever come when he's supposed to. And he says it matter of factly, not a poor little rich boy.
Right.
Oh, my dad never had time for me. It's just a matter of, and I love Watson's point of he can either come or he cannot come.
Yes.
But we are not going to be played with. If you say you're coming to visit us, do.
Now he's barely, if at all. I keep wondering. I'm hoping from him we're going to also get insights into Holmes' mother, because we don't even know if she's alive.
No, we do not hear anything about this at all. But so wonderful.
Oh, I wonder if we're gonna get a mention of Mycroft. Like I know, because I wonder, because obviously that's someone that would ask and probably even figure out that and I wonder if they're gonna, because of course Holmes in the original stories there was like no mention of family except Mycroft.
Right.
And Sherlock did a kind of a funny take that his father's completely normal and his mother's like kind of a genius, but she lives normal or something like that. I mean, I wonder how. Obviously, he's a businessman, so he's intelligent. But I'm curious what avenue they'll go with him. But so they go back to the case and they realize that the two girls knew each other very well, and they are actually two women that escaped. Tried to escape with a coyote through Mexico, and
right.
that the coyote betrayed the cartel, and the girls got away, but that all the bodies were burned. So they figure that might be an avenue to explore.
Yeah, and it was an interesting twist to have this despicable man, and him saying, well, I didn't mean to kill him. They just couldn't take the rough stuff.
Oh, yes.
And then and it reminds me of, I'm originally from Louisiana, and back in the heyday, Governor Edwin Edwards, someone said, are you guilty? And he said, blank, yes, but just not of this. And so, that's kind of this guy, right? Like, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, it's something they've actually done in the show before. Like in one episode, they had a guy they thought was a serial killer, but they turns out his alibi was he was raping his this woman she had chained in the basement. Yeah. And they've done it before. Like someone's not guilty because they were committing
right.
Because I'm scum, just not this. Oh, then there was the one with the guy that even though he found the guy dead and he put him in the S&M gear.
Yeah.
They've done stuff like that before, and like you say, like in Holmes could not care less that the man was an evil bastard. He's not trying to clear his name, because if it's true, that's all Holmes cares about.
Yeah, and I do love this pursuit of truth. And, later we find in the episode that I'm doing this for you, Watson. If this is so notorious, we assume this is kind of like an O.J. Simpson type of media circus around this. If he can solve this, then he thinks they'll have to take her back.
Right. But we see from his little meeting with Agent McNally that they're like, I'm forgetting the exact term, but they're just no one wants them. They're damaged goods. That's the word. That's the term I'm looking for. Because and I like how he just said it was gonna, like he pretty much implies, and it said like it was gonna happen eventually. So no one wants to touch him. It's not even because he's an addict. Yeah. That's it's dangerous goods.
Yeah.
And so Watson goes to see the restaurant owner.
Yes.
And the second I saw it was this actor, because I'm gonna look up his name because I have it right in front of me. I'm a huge fan of him.
Yes, I loved him.
David Zayas.
Yes, I loved him in Dexter. And unfortunately, this is the problem. I know what you're going to say, right? So go ahead and finish it, and then
I was
I'll
gonna say
agree.
it was. I was gonna say we knew once we saw him, he was either a red because they have done that before. It's either a red herring or he's the killer.
Right. And because you're going, okay, this guy is too well known, he's too great of an actor. So it's like, okay, unless they're going to, it is a red herring. This guy is the killer. Because he was wonderful in Dexter, and then great as Maroney in Gotham.
Oh
So
yeah,
yeah,
I thought it was a weird choice since he's not Italian, but
yeah,
that's another story. Oh, and we have to talk about the fact that Watson outright threatens the lackey, which was awesome. She doesn't say I'm going to trigger you. She just says either Holmes's father come see him or I beat you. I would have loved to see that conversation. Mr. Holmes, please go
yeah.
see your son.
Well, and like you said, how hard have you been hit? Oh, okay. Well, either pass on this message or this will happen. Yeah, just so she's such a badass.
Well, it's Lucy
Lucy Liu
Liu.
is just awesome.
I mean, that almost went. How hard have you been hit? Is almost went into my favorite lines.
Yes, absolutely.
So he's okay. By the way, can I just say, who the hell just without deleting your search history just looks up how do I dispose of a body?
Yes, I do think, and how interesting, right? The twist that the victim is the one who ended up doing that search for a whole nother reason,
Right.
right?
And taking the gun. Although here's the
Yeah,
thing, her husband was a psycho and a sadist. I know he was cheating on her, but I
yeah.
wouldn't be surprised if she went up to him and says, "Hey, you want to kill someone?" He'd be like, "All right."
Yeah, I know. It actually, that may have saved her life, right? That if he
Right.
had said, "Hey, well, sure, we can do this together." Oh, I've never loved you more.
I actually,
That's a
I
nice
mean, the
twist.
guy was rich. He could have had him killed.
Yeah,
I don't know, but that's because I guess her mind wasn't deviant enough for that. That's
right.
rather the point. That's why she didn't survive because she's not really a killer.
Yes.
So Holmes figures out that it could very well have been a member of the that they recognize a member of the cartel that killed everyone. So they decide to come. So they go to see a guy that at the time of the incident was a high-ranking member of the cartel. And I love how a throwback to the Agra next episode. He's just like, whatever you're accusing me of, I did it.
Yeah.
Oh, and the part in the waiting room when she says stop thinking that, I swear he was like almost surprised that she could like read him so good.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay, I know this is a weird thing for me to, because I've always wondered if how intentionally they dress Watson, because she always wears interesting clothes. I swear to God, there's an outfit she wears in this episode that looks like hospital scrubs.
It does. I know exactly what you're talking about. She looks really good, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
always.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So yeah, I just wanted to put that out there. But yeah, so through talking to the guy, I like the little thing. But like Holmes can threaten me with $100,000 any time of the week.
Yeah.
No, please. But true, it's true. Like, and he's even saying your family probably wouldn't tell anyone about it, and then the cartels would find out and kill everyone.
Yes.
So he tells them that all the men involved with all the cartel employees were killed. So and they think obviously because that's the only person they could have been looking for is he's lying to them. But then he tells them the little despicable little thing that he is
Yeah.
that they didn't kill the coyote because you can always get more immigrants, but a guy who knows the roots harder to find. Although I do find it hard to believe that they didn't take a finger or something, you know.
Yeah. That does seem a little, strange that they
I can
would.
believe they let him live because, like I said, it's a
Yeah.
business, but no way they didn't burn him, cut him, something.
Hmm.
But that's just neither here nor there.
Yeah.
So they start. Oh yeah, and by the way, what? I mean, imagine trying to. Oh, it's a Spanish guy named El Gato. This should be easy to find.
Yeah. Good point.
But they start looking into it, and they call. I love. I wonder if I didn't think to look it up. I wonder if that crime statistic is true.
Yeah, that would be interesting, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I'm not moving there.
Yeah, no, not at all.
I don't. So I mean, is anyone not on a take if the crime is
Yes.
But so they start looking into it, and there's wait, no, first. Oh, so I'm jumping ahead here, but first they find out Holmes will not be prosecuted.
Yes.
And this is where, as you said, he says, "We can finish this case for you." I like how she says, "Listen," she said it. Like I love like he makes mention of how good of an investigator she is to Greg when he talked to the captain earlier. But
Hmm.
this one, oh yeah, and by the way, his reaction when Watson hugs him is excellent. Like, okay, I'm being hugged now.
Yes.
But he says to her, like, "Listen, I will." She's like, "I don't care. Like, I'm doing this because I like working with you. It's a partnership." And even now, he's like surprised to hear stuff like that because he's
Yeah.
never had anyone say that to him ever.
Yeah, and I do love the idea that there is a respect and a friendship, and it is their partnership that means the most to them.
Well, this is a second thing that I've seen so many, especially the Basil. If I may use an example, I watched the Basil Rathbone Holmes, and he was great as Holmes, but this Watson. Oh God, and so many Watson gets it wrong. Holmes does not look down on Watson. This is very important. Of course,
Right.
Watson isn't as smart as Holmes. Even in this version where
Yeah.
she's also a detective, she can never
Right.
be Holmes. But she's still intelligent, and like if someone said to Sherlock Holmes, "Bind this wound," he wouldn't know what to do. Watson would.
Right.
That's the point. I
Yeah.
hate he has such okay. Of course, sometimes he'll make fun, but that's what friends do. He'll make fun of him
Yeah.
or whatever.
Exactly.
But he would die for Holmes in a second. That's from the
Yeah.
original canon. This is his other half of his soul, not in a romantic way, but this is
Right.
his kindred spirit. And in my opinion, they get that right in this. See, this whole show, which makes it, I think, really interesting, is like in the original canon, Holmes and Watson pretty much they barely they have a real introduction. This is them becoming ever since episode 1 becoming Holmes and Watson.
Yes.
And there's more among. Yeah, this is a good enough place to talk about as any, because we mentioned like what are they going to do now? Because like you said, every season is different. I think what they could
Yes.
do. I don't know if they'll leave New York. They might. It'd be really interesting to move them to London, but I think at the very least what they're going to do is like the original, because the original stories again, he worked with police, but a few cases. I think we might get a whole season of private cases, which I think could be really interesting.
I do think that too, and I do think it's very interesting. I thought the same thing. I said, you know, being a private investigator, or doing a consulting detective or whatever they want to call it, is a good thing for these guys. And we have the discussion. We're going to see what happens with his father, right? But for now, I believe that they can support themselves and do well just taking care of this, right?
They said in the episode back when they thought when it was Mycroft lying that like if the father kicks them out, they can because they don't do the cases for money. They just started doing the case just to pay rent,
Yeah.
So and if they are going to do private cases, please, writers, if anyone listens to this podcast, do a Red-Headed League episode.
Yes.
I love that freaking story because it's so ridiculous. My three favorite home stories are Red-Headed League, Blue Carbuncle, and Speckled Band because it's just so. Oh, and Hound of the Baskervilles because it's just so weird.
Yeah, absolutely.
But they haven't really. They've only done. They really kind of. It's probably intentionally so they can do their own thing. Not done a lot of adaptations of classic stories.
Yeah. No, they haven't.
I can understand why, but I still kind of little part of me hopes to see it.
Yeah.
So we'll see where they. I really think that's what they're going to go with the season. I mean, if they go back to London, I bet we'll see Kitty again.
I think so too. And my hope is, I think you can get the people from the precinct involved enough that if they are doing this independent, they could still interact, and they still are going to be they have a friendship and a partnership with the police.
Right. We'll see where they go with that.
Yeah.
So as they're looking into the cases and apparently picking up dead squirrels
Yeah.
at the precinct. I mean, one thing that's very important about the show, the writers I've never seen them do anything. They never introduce characters. Although, you know what? I really hope this private. Well, I'll get to this thought that just popped in my head, but they never do anything without a reason. So I'm really hoping like they wouldn't have built up Marcus and the captain just to not have him anymore. So I'm sure they'll bring it back. Another thing I really hope they would stop being, just have Mrs. Hudson a regular, you know?
Yeah.
And I really hope I'm a little worried that the reason she's not a main character is because it's played by a transgendered actor.
I think it's more just practicality of, are they going to have enough of her to do and contracts and stuff. So we'll see. But no, I agree. I think she's especially if they go the private investigator route, her being housekeeper, maybe receptionist would be very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe Candace Kane just got an award, and she deserves it for all the way she's, driven, breaking down barriers and all that.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
back to the case. So they look into it and they find out through talking to police that El Gato, they described him, so there's no way this description is false. And then Watson realizes the guy's name's El Gato. The restaurant is called 9 Lives. Although one thing I find funny is, obviously this was written before they cast. I like how they're saying, he's an unattractive, jolly, catcher-mitt-looking guy. And
yeah.
No, he's not.
Yeah.
Come on, with that voice, he could get anyone, and that short swagger, he could get any girl.
Absolutely.
It's like, I bet the writers are like, do we keep this line in? And you can tell they grayed him up, they wrinkled him up a little bit, but still, It's like, no.
Exactly.
And they used, they find video of him obviously being able to defend himself, and they looked into it, that it's more likely it's him, and, but they can't really. Well, obviously, they'll find the bodies. But like Holmes says, and the funny thing is, if it was self-defense, technically he would be in the right if they went after him. If they didn't go to the authorities or anything.
Right.
But apparently the guy's wanted for crimes in El Salvador, so he's getting shipped off, which I loved. I'm really surprised I didn't take a swing at Holmes.
Yeah, that was interesting.
But I love that they're like, oh, you're going to El Salvador. It's like, okay. So they wrap it up, and Watson suggests they start looking into working for Jersey crimes. And Holmes, you can almost hear Holmes just go, no. We are not working in Jersey. I think that's why he was almost serious. He'd rather work in El Salvador than freaking Jersey.
Yeah.
In El Salvador, the crime rate's 97. In Jersey, it's probably 110.
Yes.
But hopefully it'll be better once Chris Christie leaves. Zing!
Yes,
so,
zing.
Now, of course, this is something I'm sure we've both been looking for to talk about. We mentioned Holmes' father. Like, I remember since the start, I've been saying, who's going to play him? Who could play Holmes' father? And who they picked is so obvious, I never even thought about it. John Noble. I mean, who else could play him? It's such a perfect choice.
It is totally perfect. I was very happy to see him in the credits.
I knew it was him the second I heard that voice.
Yeah, but I'm just saying I wasn't sure. I've kind of stayed away from spoilers, so I didn't know how often they were going to use him. So being in the credits means that we might get a lot of John Noble, which is a good thing as far as I'm concerned.
You never have enough John Noble.
Yeah, exactly. It was so cool and very, very, waited to the end, and the awkwardness of the exchange. I hope you don't mind I let myself in. Well, it is your house.
I can't wait to see where they go. Like, what is he going to do? I mean, Holmes has raised him up to be this demon of a man, just horrible father. Like, what is he going to do?
Yeah, and there has to be, to a certain degree, some tension, right? This is not something you can do easily. It would be I don't think it would be fair if he came back, oh, son, I'm proud of you for at least trying. No, there's going to be a lot of tension, a lot of problems between these two.
And I can't wait to see it, like him and Watson in the middle of it. So before we get on final thoughts, I just want to make mention of my favorite line from the episode. Left an impression on me, not to mention some gray matter.
Yes, absolutely great line. That would be my top two as well.
Okay, so my final thoughts are, I was worried when he used, but now that it's like this, these writers take risks. They really do,
Yes.
because the payoff isn't right away, so you have to have faith in them. So, but I like what they're doing, and again, the addiction story on addiction's really unique and it's realistic, and all I'm just so curious to where they're gonna go.
Yeah, my final thoughts are off to a great season. I am very happy that the Holmes Watson friendship is in place. I have liked the idea that their friends at the precinct both are supportive but realistic. I like the idea that where are they going to go and what are we going to do. So yeah, just a great start, and I want to say again, grateful and thankful that you asked me to join you to talk about the premiere.
Oh, I'm sure I'll have you on for another episode sometime,
Absolutely.
a few times this season.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's all for this week, folks. Stay tuned. Maybe, who knows who we'll have next week, sitting across from me on Baker Street. So until then, the game is afoot.